the storms of life are raging, Lord, stand by me. When the current pulls me under, Lord, stand by me. When the rising waters toss me like a ship upon the sea, you who rule the wind and water, Lord, stand by me. In the midst of persecution, Lord, stand by me. When the enemies surround me, Lord, stand by me. When the tyrant wields his terror and the armies wage their might, when the darkness overwhelms me, Lord, stand by me. Stand by me, stand by me, lift me up from the restless sea. When I am lost, when love can't be found, when no one cares, Lord, stand by me. Stand by me, stand by me, lift me up from the restless sea. When I am lost, when love can't be found, when no one cares, Lord, stand by me. 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 Lift me up from the restless sea. When I am lost, when love can't be found, when no one cares, Lord, stand by me.
Good morning, all our lovely, lovely people, and welcome to another exciting edition of Catholics at Home. Good morning, Father Clarence.
Hey, Patrick, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Father. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yes, I'm enjoying my first cup of coffee, Father.
I noticed the Catholics at Home mug has reached you finally.
Yes, I'm so happy.
You've
And the
been
coffee tastes nicer, so.
you've been complaining for about 6 months now, I think, about the mug.
So it's good to see everybody. I'm just looking at everybody who's tuned in. I haven't seen everybody for quite a while. Pamela Kamala from California. Wow. Untermang Megan, Angeline Danker, Fatima Raju, Linda, Pam Fernandez. Wow. So many people are tuning in this morning. I think everybody is also happy that it's already September. Christmas is coming up, Father.
Wow, that's really rather early, isn't it?
Oh yes, we have to practice. I heard that the Filipinos actually start practicing Christmas from September. Trees are coming up already.
I can't even
Yeah,
think so far. I can't even think so far ahead, lah.
yeah. But can you believe it's already September? It's amazing.
Yeah, time, time,
Yeah,
time flies. Really, time flies.
time really
Before you
flies.
before you know it, it's the end of the year already.
Yeah, yeah. It's so fast. And how have you been, Father? Coming back from this lockdown and all that. It's already been 3-4 months.
Yeah, I actually had my first travel after 2.5 years. I had to go
Wow.
to Bangkok for a meeting. It felt really strange going on a plane after 2.5 years. It was like almost like the first time, and a bit of anxiety. Don't know what to expect when you land. What kind of regulations. But yeah, everything went well. Everything went smooth. Gives you a little bit more confidence that things are slowly beginning to look better for everyone, for the
Yeah.
travel industry, for those in hospitality. Things are not like pre-pandemic. I was at the airport, and the airport looked rather empty. But
Yeah.
but I think things are slowly picking up, and the same for our lives too. I think people are getting busy. I'm sure you
Yeah.
are too, Patrick.
Yes, yes, very, very. Things are overtaking so much. And I really want to also agree with you on this anticipation, this hope. Once you get to travel, once you get to move around, yeah, I mean, everybody is getting busy, but at the same time, you can feel that people are really seeing things are moving forward, things are moving upward. Yes, we are having some teething problems here and there, but I think with social media here, you can actually see people moving on, people traveling, especially a lot of people on Facebook have been posting their travel photos, and it makes you feel good because you know that we've gone through the worst, and there's hope ahead of us. So yeah, that's a really, really good thing. So you want to shall we introduce our topic for today and our guest for today?
Yeah, during the lockdown, one of the things that everyone kind of like hooked themselves onto was the digital media, whether it was online masses, whether it is online sessions, retreats, holy hours, talks, seminars, and something that kept us going, I guess. Uh, Connected with the world, and I think as church also, we also kind of rode the wave at that time,
Mm.
to be able to use those things. So this morning we're going to talk a little bit about social media, and that's become the thing for a lot of not just young people, but older people like me. I guess it's also become a tool for communication, a tool for engagement with people and churches. So this morning we're going to talk to Father Nigel from the Archdiocese of Mumbai, who's at the very heart of media, and how they have sustained during the pandemic, and how they have grown, and hopefully gives us some idea too, Patrick, this morning, how we can also develop our own platform.
Mm. Yes, yes. Let's bring in Father Nigel.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Father Nigel.
Good morning to all of you.
And you're connecting to us from the Archdiocese of Mumbai, I understand.
Yes, yes, very much from the
Oh,
Archdiocese of Bombay and from my parish, which is Our Lady of the Rosary Church in a suburb, just not really a suburb, just off the center of the city, a place called Mazagon, where the docks is.
oh,
Ah,
okay. So we want to welcome you, Father, to Catholics at Home. We are actually transmitting out of Malaysia, and thank you for taking this time to be with us and to share with us your journey and your venture into social media. I think our viewers are very excited to learn and to understand a little bit more about how the church is engaging with these new tools in the market. So maybe we could begin, Father Nigel, by for the benefit of our viewers, to tell us a little bit about yourself, your your background, and how you got involved in social media in Bombay.
Well, I, I was involved to some extent in kind of different ministries as a young priest, and one of the things I realized was that back in 2008 and 9, a lot of young people were using different kinds of communication. In those days, Facebook was not yet on. It came in 2009. There was something called Orkut at that time, which was an early version from Google, and that basically has been something that has evolved with time. So yeah, I decided to invest in it because I found a lot of young people were out there, and if we didn't reach them, then we're losing out a key target audience of the church. And then based on that, I did some studies and finished my master's in communications, and then my doctorate in social communications. And then the diocese thought it was important that I take care of uh, the communication department, but they had no idea what to do. So I proposed getting involved in digital platforms, and we started from 2011 onwards. But it was trial and error, shoot and miss, until we got things down into until actually the reality is until we got a lot of young people involved, and they showed us the way, because older priests like myself were finding it difficult to understand how to navigate this space. And even though you're educated, it was a young team of they were in between 18 and 24 who joined the office, and that made the difference because they saw things from the perspective of the youth, and they basically came up with various concepts that were so varied and different, sometimes radical. Some of it got us into hot water, but all the same, I think it was worth the risk.
Wow, you're saying ages 18 to 24. That is like one third or one quarter of our ages of the three of us here. So
Yeah,
these are
yeah.
really
So
young people that
the, the
form your
good
team.
thing, yeah, the good thing about my office is that the average age is about 27. So I'm the
Wow.
oldest. So I have a
oh yeah,
whole lot of
perfect.
young people.
That's like my age, lah. So I think I would fit in.
Father, your coffee not strong enough, Father. You need a little bit more coffee.
Nigel, you talk. I mean, one of the things that I realized is that when we all in church, I mean, prior to the pandemic, we all talked about getting involved in media, church, communications was much talked about. Even as early as Vatican II,
Sure.
it was already talking about communications, the new forms of communication. But I think the pandemic somehow accelerated that growth in the church. Somehow, you had no choice; you had to get onto it, and we all went into a lockdown about the same time. I think Malaysia, India, about March, April, around that time. Um, from Mumbai, in the sense from the archdiocese, I don't know whether you all were prepared for it, but what did you all do? How did you all use the digital platform to reach out to people during those early days of that lockdown?
Well, so there were various alternative or various processes that we used. So first, we were not prepared for a lockdown because it was suddenly imposed, and so we kind of got an inclination that it was. So the first thing was, how do we communicate to the people? What is the outreach program and masses? And so for that purpose, we looked at what platforms were available, using people staying at home and operating from home, and maybe one or two people in Bishop's house acting, working, handling things. So uh, what we basically came up with was what people would look at and what they would want. And one was is a reassurance that the church is with them, that the church is going to be part of their journey, and the church is going to be involved in their struggles. And so the platforms we chose were basically the YouTube channel to broadcast masses, catechesis, prayer services, as well as for other social engagement. And then we had a whole lot of other kind of programs which were through our Instagram handle as well as through the Facebook page that enabled social interaction at various levels. So while spiritual needs were taken care of by masses and catechesis, we also felt the need to get people engaged in different things, from sharing how they've operated in the lockdown, from recipes to uh, do it yourself things and photographs that we could then use. And that's how we kind of engaged. And we even did, I think one of the beautiful things was an online talent show across the diocese, in which people sent in some kind of a thing, and we put it into various categories, from stand-up comedy to puppets to ventriloquism to uh, dance to singing. And we had a close to about, in the archdiocese, close to about 250 people who sent in entries, and then we created a showcase of their talents. I think we took about a 1.5 hour program, broken up into two Sundays, and we kind of screened the talent show, and it was pretty interesting because it was intense. The idea, of course, was at that time Father Melroy, who worked with me. Uh, he was the one who pioneered this program.
And I'm just curious to know, in that sense, that when we transition to mass online, um, how did the older people manage that transition? From here, I'm just trying to compare between here and Malaysia, and you would think that older people struggled, or were they able to connect in that sense?
So yes, it was a struggle for the older people, but the good thing was, their kids were at home with them, and the kids are techno savvy, so they helped. But there was constant complaints. Father, the YouTube, the captions had come on automatically, and sometimes they are artificially intelligence generated, so they don't normally say what was said, and accents are a problem, and sometimes extremely abusive words would appear on screen. And those were things. So we had to educate people that, look, we can't control that, you have to switch it off on your end, you have to do certain things. So there were regular kind of post situations teaching things as to how to use the online platforms. And then we realized that the sanctity of the worship needs to be there, and so we had to educate people about the fact that you don't have to come to church doesn't mean that you have not to prepare yourself. And so we did a whole lot of catechesis with regards to that. Yeah, so that was a struggle. Believe me, it was absolute struggle.
I think what you're saying, it does resonate with us as well, because we did have this closed captions issue in several instances. But at the same time, I think it allowed, one of the things that it allowed on our side was people managed to bring the mass to their house.
True. True.
So one of the things that we noticed, that some of the houses, they had little altars, and the altars became slightly bigger, and they put the TV inside, so the screen there. But yeah, I think one of the other challenges was that, because the older folks couldn't get it all set up, some of them only had their phone, and it would be just a small thing at the side. So that's one of the experiences that also happened on our side lah.
And
Maybe
there
you
were a
could
lot of,
share.
yeah, sorry,
Sorry.
there were lot of teething things, like the volume levels, and because on our end we found it was perfectly fine, but people who had phones that were not good enough would then say, we can't hear, it's too soft. And so we had to find ways to balance it out where it wouldn't blast on one side and it would be, easy to figure out. So it was quite a struggle, but it was also a great amount of joy. And the hardest part was to have our staff working remotely in different places. So I would record the mass, upload it onto the drive. They would then place it all together, make sure it's because we couldn't do it live at all times. So we would record it a little earlier and then release it at the appropriate time. So that was a struggle, and it required lots of coordination.
I think it
And then to
required
yeah.
a lot of commitment as well
Yes,
from
yes.
from
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 all
the
this,
team.
in fact, I've told my main editor who's been looking after the masters, I said, you've heard more masters in this 1 year of lockdown than you heard in your whole life.
Have they paid in advance already? I guess. Are they not
Yeah,
saying
they are straight to heaven, straight to heaven.
No, we have used all this, Nigel, in the sense that in so many different platforms,
Sure.
and whether it's Zoom or we use StreamYard here, so many other things that are out there, social media, and I'm just thinking in the sense that how what is the potential of these things for the church now that we have used this thing, so all those things, trial and error, we have kind of jumped in. It's like being thrown into the deep end of the pool. Now you go figure it out and try to swim and get out that. From your own learning with your team, and what kind of potential does this offer us as church,
So,
especially for the spreading of the good news, for evangelization?
so 2 or 3 things we've realized pretty quickly. One is, the target audience that wants to watch your mass is not the same audience who would engage with you on social media via Instagram or on Facebook. Those are the 2 main platforms. So it's a younger generation who's using that, and so we needed to find creative ways in which we could reach out to them over a period of time, not just during the pandemic, but even prior to that, we were engaging with young people. And so we looked at the attention span that they normally are and what can we do in 30 seconds to a minute, what can we do between a minute and 3 minutes, and how can we engage young people in our digital communication. So we created a whole lot of different things, right from static posts, which were just posters, but were cleverly done. We basically piggybacked on what was trending at that time. Like take, for example, when Facebook became Meta, we had a very creative post that went out, which was more a tweet as well as just a post on Facebook. Jesus loves you, no matter what you do, and fun was so those kind of
Very
things. That
cute.
yeah, and then of course there was that. You remember the 10-year image of 10 years before, after, your photograph 10 years before and 10 years after. So, those, that one was another one that did well. Yeah, that's one of the archdiocesan posts that we had put up. So 10 years before and after. So we said, Jesus was the same today and forever, and that was the 10 years before after challenge. So we've done also when iPhone came out, the new one with the 3 cameras, the 3 lenses. So our image at that time was to ride the trending wave because everyone was basically going with the tree and the iPhone icons, and so we came up with there is a much more powerful tree, and it was in the iPhone camera itself, the images of the Trinity. So we've tried to ride the wave as it comes in,
Wow,
and things that way, and it worked well. It's worked well.
that's so
So
clever. That means your creative team has got to be really on the fly, to be able to capture.
oh yes, they always, and they honestly they be speaking to you all because they really do a fabulous job. It's a nice set of people. Yeah, this is the one. Hey, I love you. You know, well, I noticed you've changed, and I love you anyways. And that was the 10-year challenge that was there. And 2009, 2019, that was when it was all trending. So we try to pick up on what's trending and see how we can give it a Catholic twist. One of the things that worked well for us, in fact, was a whole series that we did on a blockbuster Fridays. So we created so the same movie posters that existed that the theaters were displaying, we displayed them with a catechetical twist to it, and we had something of scripture written about it. So Game of Thrones was the big Game of Thrones. We had Pilate in the Game of Thrones, and we talked about the Last Supper, and the newspapers picked it up. So this was our blockbuster Fridays, and the persons had to write it in a very creative way, give the gist of what it was, because it's going to be a glance, and then people go out of it. So these were kind of things that we did from time to time, and it worked wonders. And I think it's the young team. This Love Actually was another one, and it was all about. So we did a whole lot of stuff on Blockbuster Fridays, which worked extremely well with the younger generation, and some of it trended in Mumbai, in India, and the local newspapers or the national newspapers picked it up and said, "This is what's the Catholic Church is doing to communicate." And that was quite a interesting thing, because that was never the intention. The intention was to reach the young, and I think we engaged a lot with it. So that was fun.
Now, talking about getting movies, I'm sure you're never short of movies. You are at the heart of Bollywood itself. So
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
there's never a shortage of movies to highlight. As you speak, Nigel, in the sense that you use the word a lot of young, and this is something that I struggle with, and I've talked with others too. In doing this, in the emphasis seems to be the young, and does it in some way, somehow to the disadvantage of a certain segment of society? Do we exclude them in some ways? For
Yeah,
example, the older people,
sure.
people who don't have access. Uh, uh, for example, the other thing is also language barriers, because a lot of times what you see on social media is in English, and here in Asia, I'm sure in India too, in Mumbai, there's so many different languages. How do we still include them as part of this project? Because it's so easy for them to be excluded.
So there are two portions to it. So we realized that Facebook is something that the older generation also would access, but Instagram was mainly the younger generation. In fact, when we do a couple of sessions, the common thing that youngsters say is, "I will never be on Facebook," and the reason for that is that my parents are on it, and I don't want them to know what I'm doing. So that's how the youngsters see it. So our Instagrams are mainly a handle, basically addresses younger people, what they're doing, how they're doing things. And the Facebook would be, well, we do have things that go both ways. It works cross platforms. But our YouTube channel was specifically meant for the older people, because they want longer formats, catechesis, prayer, those kind of things. So the YouTube channel catered more towards that segment than anyone else. Languages, of course, was because often we had speakers who could manage in more than one language, and they would then communicate. But in general, YouTube was our way of addressing the older generation, because they were more interested in the longer format of things. Younger people were not so keen on that, except for the mass. They would attend, and in fact, till now, in spite of things opening out, it's the older people who've come back to church. The younger ones are still comfortable with an online mass. They'll search for a priest they like. So, and it's across. They can go to any country, choose any priest, and listen to their mass. And so you have different priests who have become social media stars. I don't think it was ever the intention, but it seems to have created that kind of a trend where youngsters want to follow someone who can communicate their thoughts, communicate to them, and address their concerns. And they tend to, what we've noticed in Mumbai is that not many places have got youngsters coming back to the church in the way the elders have come back. So that's a phenomenon that we need to address and probably deal with.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you're mentioning is also apparent in this part of the world. Even in Malaysia, you find the attendance in mass is not as great as it was before the pandemic, and that's because there's the availability of online masses, and so so that is one of the issues that is faced, lah. Maybe you could share a little bit more about let's talk about the media ministry itself, like what you're having, what Catholics at Home has, and a lot of other media ministries that have sprouted during this pandemic time. Some of the risks that we face, in the parishes, in the dioceses, and what that we should be aware of. What are some of the risks that we should be aware of? And based on what you've maybe experienced or you anticipate, and how we can avoid those risks.
Well, I guess in practically all countries we are dealing with hostile environments. Not all countries, but in general, you have hostile environments, and for that you need to have a certain element of caution. Because at the end of the day, you might be communicating, and it might be a very clever message or a very good message, but it could put someone else at risk. Because you're on the city, and the city, the securities and all that happens is uh, is is great, but in the rural areas, someone will pay the price for a communication that you put in. Uh, the second part would be with regards to respecting religious sentiments of all communities, because we all, in all our Asian countries, we are multi-religious communities, and therefore respecting, and often sometimes our approach should be talking about what we believe in our faith, without in any way pointing out what other people's faith is all about. So stress on the goodness of one's own faith, on what the faith teaches us. And if we are looking at how to integrate other people and their faith, then talk about the commonalities between all faiths. And that's an area that will encourage dialogue and relationship, rather than some kind of resistance. The concerns that we always have is, how does how do we sustain the social media? Because you see lots of parishes started off with online and websites and social media, and now that things have opened up, young people started going back to their works. All those things have gone into hibernation. So how do you sustain interest? How do you keep it alive? What can you do? And for parishes, what we've advised people in the archdiocese is, there are certain things. So point them out into places that things that are important. Point them out to things that are key, and focus on local issues. Focus on your local parish events. Focus on how to communicate what's happening in your church, and leave global-based images or global-based communication to dioceses, professional media houses, who can do a better job of that. So that's been our way forward so far. It's been a learning curve, and we're helping parishes, especially with regards to social communications and the do's and don'ts. Uh, but not everyone listens.
What are some of the do's and don'ts, Nigel? Let's say, if you are setting up something for, say, a parish is starting up a ministry, what are
Yes.
some of the do's and don'ts that you would advise from your experience?
So the first thing is, of course, to have a team and to have a young priest involved. See, because I am not sure what it is in Malaysia, but the average parish priest age in Mumbai is approximately 67. So these are not, these are digital migrants, not digital natives, and they don't understand the power of the media and how it works. So you appoint a younger priest, and I think many parishes do have young priests who can be engaging in that. Uh, Most importantly is, understand that, and this is what I've kept emphasizing to the parish. It's never personality driven, but content driven, and therefore you have to emphasize the fact that the people who are handling the social media should never be promoting themselves. They should be promoting the faith, promoting the content of the parish, promoting the vision of the archdiocese, promoting the vision of their own local church. Because if it gets personality driven, the moment that priest gets transferred from there to another parish, then that whole setup collapses, and it doesn't work going forward. So social media, have a younger priest, uh, you know, and with that younger priest, try and work out things that are different, that can keep the focal point more on how we can keep uh, the social media active, relevant. But the main do's would be local issues. The don'ts would be basically ensure there is no personal messaging going out, ensure that there is no political message going out, ensure that you're promoting your church related programs and the vision and the objectives of the church. Of course, theological concerns are always there. So what we do for the Archdiocese is that I have a very good young team who are extremely creative. But anything that has a theological concern, it has to be run by me. And sometimes, as much as I love the idea, uh, I would say, look, we can't say it this way because it has political ramifications, or it has uh, religious ramifications, and we need to be sensitive to people around us. So that's basically how we kind of deal with it.
One of the things that this whole experience of the pandemic has taught a lot of people is that we've lost that personal encounter, right? Because we've all been isolated, and the faith has been able to step in and come online and come into our personal spaces through our personal devices, and communicated us with us in that way. But how do we balance that now? Because uh, now we've got digital encounter with people, and we've got to balance that with the personal encounter, because we don't want to lose people to their phones, right? We want them to still come to church. We still want to have face-to-face formations. We still want to have them physically in at mass, right? So how do we balance that, Father? How do you see that happening?
So I think one is, our Eucharists are prime opportunities to communicate and communicate effectively, but we need to be well prepared. I think Pope Francis has said it so very often, which is, make sure that your sermons are packed with stuff that people can uh, grow in, uh, and it has to be concise within that 7 minutes, because 7 minutes is decent amount of time to communicate and break the word of God. And we need to do that on a regular basis. I think where we've missed the point very often is that now that we've come back, we've gone back to old ways. Social media, mm, digital media, we were able to do things because we were concise, we were to the point, we eliminated a lot of things that took away from the messaging, and it made an impact. Now that people are coming back, we've gone back to living the old way of doing things, and the old way was not necessarily the best. And while for me, the Eucharist is the center of Christian spirituality and is the core of my faith. I think the way in which we address it needs to be slightly different. And yes, keep the sermons relevant, keep them within the time frame. Make sure that people are. Make sure that you have the lectors properly gone through the readings. Make sure that the liturgy is well executed. It has to be something that people feel comfortable with. Uh, and finally, you know, I think finding the balance. So while the pandemic was on, while churches were closed and online masses were there, lots of other things were opened up. So a couple of parishes started novel ways of dealing with it. So they would have the online mass, and the priest would then go out to communities, and people would come down from their apartments to the gate of the building and receive Holy Communion out there, because the priest would take it from the church to them. So they kind of integrated the thing. So Holy Communion would be immediately after the online Mass, and they would take it to the people, and people would actually attend the online Mass and come down and receive Holy Communion. So they tried various kind of pastoral integrations, and it was possible in a city like Mumbai because the people are rather close to the church. Yeah? So geographically, they are well situated near the church.
Hmm.
So
So it was a different.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Talking about digital connectivity and personal connectedness. I don't know if you remember when mobile phones first came out, it was Nokia. Nokia's tagline was connecting people. And one of the things that we realize today that yes, we are digitally connected with many people, but in some ways personally disconnected with many people at the same time in the personal sense. And I often use the example, when people were sick one time, we made an effort, okay, pre-pandemic days, long time ago, we'd make an effort to go and visit them in the hospital. Now it's reduced to an emoji, possibly, a get well soon flower or something like that. So it somehow has replaced that personal touch. And maybe this is a new generation that we are dealing with. Even the way young people text messages, sometimes I don't even know what the abbreviations are. I need to go and Google it and say, what this actually means, and I mean, it shows my age, I guess. I am just a migrant. But the question is, how I just always wonder that how do we also promote from your own pastoral, how do we still promote that personal connectedness with people, and not reduce each other to a gadget, to something that I always struggle with that when we hardly call. I mean, gone are the days when people write letters. Nobody, gone are the days. Emails are also very less now. It's all now. It's either some app that you use to
WhatsApp.
connect. Yeah, WhatsApp, Viber, and so many other
Yes.
things.
Yes.
I think how do we promote in this digital world, in this digital culture among the younger people, the importance of personal connectivity.
It's always going to be a challenge. I think younger people prefer mediated communication rather than face-to-face communication because, as they say, you can always present the best version of you in any kind of social communication because you edit and knock off what's not good, and face-to-face requires actually sitting down, talking. Mistakes will be made, and communication is never always perfect. Uh, that being said, I think it should start with you know people in the church themselves. I think one of the beautiful parts of what the church was all about was the pastoral visitation of the priest and the way they went from house to house and met people and interacted with them. I think those are the things that actually keep the connectedness alive. So, we encouraged people in the archdiocese. We said, well, uh, you can't physically go to someone's house because there is a lockdown, but what's stopping you from doing a phone visit and praying with every family? And so we encourage people. The priest would take the numbers of the parishioners, call up each one, have a conversation with the whole family, say a prayer for the family, and those kind of things. And that kept the connection alive. And what we've realized is parishes that tried out different ways of connectiveness are the ones that are thriving today with the community coming back in full strength. And those who kind of just locked themselves down during the lockdown are the ones who are struggling. So, yes, personal connection is extremely important. And I think parishes that actually made that attempt to have that personal connection are reaping the benefits because the people want to be connected with the church even now. And, the pandemic has knocked off the concept of parish boundaries in terms of geography because people from all over around the world used to attend your online services and participate in different kinds of programs. So uh, I think the connectedness, dealing with young people, having the meetings with them, sitting with them, I think one of the things that worked with us is actually visiting them, spending time with them, understanding what they're going through. Because very often their parents would brush it off, the social anxieties that they had and panic attacks that young people tend to have because of their involvement with social media. is normally brushed off by parents who don't understand it and say, we went through worse things when we were growing up. Why are you getting so affected? And the reality was, yes, we did have a different kind of lifestyle when we were growing up, but young people today, because of social media, are exposed to far more, and depression, social media anxiety, these are all real problems that I think we need to address as communities and as a church. It's real problems that young people experience, and I think we need to actually, you know, find ways to address it. And I don't think we're doing sufficient in that area.
I think we've got some questions that are coming in, Father, from our viewers. This question is from Adele. How do you plan your content, Father, and who sets the overall content direction in the archdiocese?
Okay, so the two things is the team. We have a team of 8 creative people who handle social media, video editing, and things like this. So this content is the calendar is created by them. They look at what is the saint for the day. They look at what's locally trending. They look at some kind of a unusual catechesis. They look at short videos, and then we create a monthly social media calendar. And the reason we create that as a monthly calendar is so that in case we realize things are not working, we have course corrections made. And then we allot different people in the team to do different things, and each of them come up with their creatives, which is passed by the creative director, who's a young man called Brinston, who looks into it. And once he passes that, then it goes on. If it's a theological content, then I also have a look at it. So the direction is basically they run the idea by me and say, we'd like to run in this way, and then I take the call. And if it's something that I need the permission of the Archbishop, then I approach him. But most of the time, it's not areas that I need the permission, because the the idea is the Archbishop has given me a free hand to direct the content of the Archdiocese in a way that would evangelize, in a way that would creatively catechize young people and all people. And so while the YouTube channel, he would normally tell me, I'd like these different things of catechesis. We ran a kind of a survey, and based on the survey, we created main categories as to the kind of areas of interest people have. And then we had the catechesis throughout the pandemic in those areas.
You keep mentioning a team, Nigel. How big is your team?
Well, for the creative part of it, we have, so totally there are 18 of us in the office, but there are
Full timers.
full
18
timers.
full timers.
18 full timers, but not all of them are on social media, because we're a company not for profit. We basically have various divisions. So, there are 2 in accounts and admin, there are 2 in a special project of the church. Sorry, there are 3 in a special project of the church, and then we have two people who are video editors, that we do documentaries and other things for other people. And then we have 4 people who are designers in the creative field, and 2 people in IT and data analysis. Mainly because data analysis is extremely important for us to work the way forward. So it's a
No.
big team, and
Yeah, I remember when we were having a meal a week ago in Bangkok, and you were
right.
saying that somehow your office is kind of, if it's if you're created in such a way that it's sustainable, that you take
Yes.
on other projects too, other commercial projects, or you do projects for schools, for institutions, and that brings in an income, so that it helps you to do work for the archdiocese, also to create good content, isn't it? I mean, that's what you were
Yes.
saying.
Yes. Yes. It is. That's the way it can. It's the way we can actually work forward, because the projects that we take up help us finance. I don't pay commercial rates. My staff should be paid much more than what they are getting paid, because of the kind of creative levels at which they execute work. But the beautiful part about it is that they're also committed to the church. That honestly, you know, they're young people who have committed themselves to promoting the faith and giving of the faith, and I'm grateful to them. So If I could pay them more, I would happily pay them more. But it's a struggle because you have to balance everything and make sure that, because during the pandemic we got hit badly. We didn't have businesses as it is, but we had to keep the social media going. So the savings of the previous years sustained us. Now hopefully when things have opened up, we have various projects we do. We operate like a small advertising agency that takes on a certain amount of commercial ventures that sustains uh, the stuff, and just about sustains.
In this world of social media, people like to post, people like to share, and all that. I'm always intrigued, and I've never really ventured to find out more, but maybe you probably know a little better. The issue of copyrights and personal privacy.
So
You know,
yes, copyrights is always the issue. So right now, even though, so that's one of the biggest issues you face, because uh, you have, so most of the time if you always mention the source as to this particular video or this particular thing I've used in my talk to enhance, and you give credit to the person and you don't monetize your channel, then it doesn't become a major issue on YouTube. Songs or hymns are a big issue, because even if you are doing a cover version of it, uh, most of those hymns you get a copyright notice. It's not a violation, and YouTube says, well, it's going to be monetized by someone else, so that is not another feature. So how do you balance that? One is, of course, having your own compositions, but that's not always possible. The second part is always acknowledging your sources, always saying, I've taken matter from here. And often enough, most people in the digital media community, especially in the context of evangelizing, have no difficulty as long as you give them credit. So you write to them and say, I'd like to use this. Can I? And most of the time they say, go ahead, please just mention that you've taken it from me. And we normally do that, and we put a link to their channel so that people can go and see what they are, the kind of content they're creating. So acknowledging people, putting their matter out there, and being very clear, because copyrights are an issue now. uh, right now YouTube has, so Facebook doesn't have much issues in terms of, they don't block your content. You can happily take people's content from other places, and that's the weakness of Facebook, because they don't really follow any copyright laws. However, YouTube is very strict on copyrights and how you handle copyrights, and acknowledging sources, taking permission from them, and telling them that we'd like to use this. And very often they have no hesitation in giving you the permission.
what about privacy? Nigel, in the sense of the issue of privacy. If I mean, give you an example. Let's say you are in a parish event, and someone takes, your media team takes a picture, and it's a picture of a group of people, and that particular person may not want his or her picture on social media. How do you handle privacy issues in that sense? Because once the picture goes up,
It's up.
there's a footprint for forever.
True, true. That honestly is a concern always, and often enough. So this is what we advise parish media teams: is that first, no photographs of children at all to go up on your social media platforms, because of the concerns and the protection of minors. The second thing is, in general, when it comes to people, is to take their permission when you're taking a picture. uh, not just randomly take pictures. So when you're taking a picture of an event, tell them that you're taking the picture, and if a person doesn't want to, then they can step out from that, or they can say, look, this is not for social media use. And always keeping people informed is important. But it is, most of the time we are in a generation where anyone or anything happens, you whip out your cell phone and you take out a picture or a video of something that's happening and you send it out. And we've had situations like that where the context is different, the way it has been uh, videographed or photographed is different, and the messaging that is put out is different. So, for example, in Mumbai, we have Vianney Sunday as a day when people show their respects and their love for the priest. And often the priest put up a cultural event for the people, which is always loved. Now, sometimes, the priest might be doing a dance, and uh, there's nothing, in my opinion, wrong with having a dance. But the way it would be recorded and circulated, and people who are angry, against, upset with the church would say, look at those priests, they're dancing away. Uh, and that causes the unnecessary heartburn very often. So, yeah,
How
it's
how do
very
you deal with how do you deal with that? Uh,
honestly, I don't have an answer. The honest thing is, it's difficult. Uh, and that's one of the reasons, so myself as a priest, I am very reluctant to do anything in a public forum that could be used or photographed. So I have curbed my instincts. I'm, I, I was a pretty crazy individual prior, but with the position and the authority and the responsibility I have in the church, I have just curbed my instincts, and I uh, sit down very quietly for all public gatherings, because who knows what will be used and how to be used about you. So yes, in one part it's killed a part of my spirit and my personality. On the other hand, I look at it as something important in the context of the church, and curbing that instinct is important, because who knows how things will be used against you, and so certain things. And we're living in a digital age, and we have people who love the church, who love their priests and will see things very differently. And there are people who are hurt by the church and will look at opportunities to use certain things in a way that will feed the agenda. And we have to find the balance between the two. And the best way is not to give them fuel for the fire.
I think what we are saying is very, very important, Father, because some of the comments that are coming in that um, from Anne Abbott, she actually commented that social media now is not just a trend that will fade away. It's not something that's a passing phase. It's going to be here to stay. So it's an important animal, so to speak, that we should be able to tame and to use for the benefit of evangelizing. Evangelization. At the same time, it is something that is new to the church, and especially in some parts of our of Malaysia, a lot of parishes don't have. Some of the parishes don't have a media team, and they are trying to figure out whether to, whether it's the clergy or the laity. They're trying to figure out, do I go on YouTube? Do we start with Facebook? Do I go on Facebook and IG? So what would be, when we're setting up a media team, for example, setting up a media team and which platform to go on to, what would be your advice to a
So,
newbie?
so the first thing is to figure out who your target audience is going to be and who's going to be watching what. So YouTube is great for the longer format of stuff, because and but young people are not interested in longer format. So your YouTube channel would be for your broadcasting of masses, holy hours, religious talks, which will go for an hour, little more than that. But if you're looking at content creation, young people engagement, Instagram would be the main way to go. And of course, for if you're just looking for communicating of what's happening in the church, around the church, then WhatsApp, Viber, line, depending which country you are. In India, WhatsApp is very popular. Then you create your poster, that could be an interactive poster that takes them, an interactive PDF that takes them to a page either on Instagram or Facebook. But your main way, because today in India, WhatsApp would be the main way of forwarding things. So we've created a network within the Archdiocese where, if we want, we can get a message out to about 500,000 people within 24 hours. It's just how the networking would work, because you have so many priests and have so many contacts, and so you just send it out and it would reach that kind of viewership in no time. How many of them would actually then pursue it is another matter. But like I said, WhatsApp groups would be, I mean, WhatsApp would be your way of communicating what program, what activity, what's happening in your church. Instagram would be mainly for younger people. and keeping the young people involved. And basically, YouTube would be the longer formats where you do your broadcasts from. Those would be your three main categories: Facebook, Instagram, uh, YouTube, and WhatsApp if you have it.
You have done a survey, you were saying earlier. I'm just going to ask you the question, going back a little bit. What kind of content do people look for? Because sometimes this is the thing, starting a media team is the least of the problems.
Sure.
You can get it set up. You can get up a Facebook page, within minutes. You can have it up and running. But
True.
from your survey or from your study, what kind of content generally people are looking for? Looking at your analytics, what are Catholics looking for?
So it depends now. There are two areas of, so the older groups or older viewership, which would be about 40 and above, love content that is faith driven from scripture and from the teachings of the church. So that's the kind of content that they love. They don't mind the longer format. They want more information on that. They want more teachings on scripture. They want to understand the faith even better, and that's probably your age group of 40 and above. The younger age group want quick content that's trendy, that's relevant, and gets over within a minute or so. So we've tried to come up with catechesis that cater to both ends. Uh, we have catechesis, so we have, like, say, the Saints of the Day, which is like an Instagram reel. We try to use reels to educate people with regards to what's happening for Instagram. So take, for example, we did a whole reel on the different colors and vestments and what do they mean, the purple, the red, the green, as an Instagram reel, and that worked very well with youngsters. They like that kind of format. Also, when a priest vests, wearing the alb, what does it signify? The cincture, the stole, and the chasuble. So we've done reels like that. So those are within a minute you've created your catechesis. But the older people prefer. So we have people in general. The older people want to know about faith. They want to know about morals. They want to know about church teachings. Younger people want to know a little about Christ, about the faith, but they want it in extremely short formats. And the short format, maximum 3 minutes. Today, they say attention span of the young person is about 28 seconds. So, those are kind of, so these are 60-second worship. These are reels that we are, these things. These are basically videos that encourage. So it was just a song. If you, I'm not sure whether the song has come on the PowerPoint version of it, but so it's something that uh, we have tried on various bases. So it's worked to some extent. We've not been successful all the time. Yes, this is it.
Well, that explains why like things like TikTok is so addictive, isn't it? It's so short,
Yes.
and people can be hooked onto it. And sometimes I catch myself doing that, just going through very short, very catchy, and it you don't mind seeing many of those things rather
Yeah.
than long sessions.
One of the things that worked well for us is also, I don't know if we can pull it up on the screen, was we created screens for phones.
It's creative.
So we created screens for, so these are screens that you could put as background images for your phones, which had the text of the Lord and text from scripture. These were things, wallpapers, and we called it Wallpaper Wednesdays, and we had a file that you could download. And so basically you had a dark version and a light version depending what you liked.
Content creation. Yeah. I
these
see.
are
I
like,
see how it-
so like this is short format content creation, like the Sacrament of Confirmation, which was just like taking them to the right.
getting it right. That's nice. That's nice.
So that was basically the kind of content that we created right through. So these
Father
were-
Nigel, you work on the archdiocese level. Okay, I mean you have the media team for the archdiocese, and I'm sure there are many parishes also in Mumbai have got media teams. I guess there is a convergence of effort. You share you share material from them, and you receive material from them also.
Yes.
In that sense. So I guess the Archdiocesan Media Team provides both resources and direction also for the parishes.
We do. We do. We created a kind of a handbook for communication and communication media teams to assist them to know where to take things. Like, take for example, which are authentic news sources that you should refer to if you want to get the Pope's message, you want to get the the intentions of the Holy Father for the month. So we've created that kind of a kind of an online resource guide for people so that they know all the different things available to them, places where you can get free templates. Sometimes we provide free templates for their slides and say, okay, this is Sunday theme. You want a slide show? Here is just a theme, that keeps, say, today's Sunday is about discipleship. So a template slide for discipleship in which you can put your hymns and everything up on screen, because most churches do have screens. They've kind of done away with hymn books, and that's the way we've kind of assisted. And sometimes they create a template and they send it to us and say, hey, how about sharing this with others? So it works both ways.
So you talk about the handbook. Is that handbook available online? Is that media teams would like to look at it?
Well, I can make it available online. We created it well before the pandemic. We basically printed and gave it out as a kind of handbook for the Archdiocese on how to create a media cell and who should be part of it and things that way. So, but that's something that I think the team will be putting it up online. We're happy to do that and happy to share whatever resources. We also had, a whole lot of things with regards to making sure that you use WhatsApp properly, because that's the biggest issue. And we found that the biggest defaulters of WhatsApp messages are, one, grandparents, and two, priests. They don't verify. They just forward. So often fake news, false news gets actively passed around, and because it's come from a priest, they believe it's gospel truth.
Yeah, they say, the idle mind, the devil's workshop. Don't know what to do. Just keep forwarding all these things to, this is one of the things I tell people when I give them my number. I said, you do not forward me all this wonderful reflections. I just so inundated with these things. People keep forwarding these things. Father Nigel, if you have that link later on, you let us know. I see a lot of practitioners from media teams are watching us this morning. They're asking many interesting questions. They are also searching for resources. So to all our viewers out there, do look out. We will share the little handbook that Father Nigel will share with us to get some idea of what you can do. I guess in the handbook also would include things to do and not to do also. I'm sure
there are certain guidelines,
ethical principles.
How to form a media team, guidelines as to what you can do, authentic sources of news, a whole lot of kind of things. And we probably updated, because this handbook was written in 2016 and 17 when we went on an all-out effort to create communication cells in different parishes. But we'd have to kind of update it with regards to certain elements that have come up due to the pandemic, and we'd probably make that also available.
Yeah, I mean that'll be a great tool for our parish media teams to look at, and also to come up with their own direction together with their priests. Father Nigel, I know you're a very busy man. You have a parish to run, like many of us do. We promised you 1 hour, but we've taken slightly more than 1 hour, and it's been great having this conversation with you. And hopefully we'll have other conversations. I know I will have conversations with you when I meet you. But on this platform, just to help people, especially something that is so powerful, yet so easily to be misused also. And I like the few key points that I take from here that you mentioned. One thing is, it's not personality driven. The media of the parish cannot be driven by personalities, priests, or any other individuals. Of course, personality meaning, I'm sure you mean Jesus. Jesus is an exception.
Yeah. Oh yes. That is the only personality that should drive it.
Yeah. And also, there's so many questions we're going to ask, things like, from your experience. And I hope you will give us an opportunity another time to have this conversation with you.
Yes.
Ask many more practical questions, like people ask me sometimes, how often do I post something on a parish? What kind of post should I post? Is this something acceptable? There's so many other things that And hopefully we have an opportunity to have this conversation another time. Father Nigel, thank you very much for the 1 hour of sharing with us. And we look forward to receiving that handbook from you, and to be able to share it with others and give some guidance also to our parishes, and also to parishes who would like to start at least somewhere in a small way. Patrick?
I think one of the important things that Father Nigel had mentioned that I think is fantastic was to help us focus a kind of a rule of thumb, long format on platforms like YouTube for the older generation, and then the short format for the younger generation, and with IG and maybe some FB. And then we create the content in those formats, and that's number one. Number two is to know that the communication and the connection is not the be all and end all of the communication is not a be all and end all of connecting with people. You still need to be with the people physically, and that still is that last mile that needs to happen in church. But it's a really strong enabler in this new economy, in this new age. So thank you so much, Father Nigel, for this engaging and exciting sharing. I'm sure so many of our viewers have benefited. And maybe we want to end with a prayer.
Father Nigel, I always say the prayer, so I invite you to have a concluding prayer.
Sure. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. God our Father, we thank you for the time spent and for the gift of media. May we use it wisely and justly for the sake of your kingdom and your mission. Help us always to be people who serve you, who love you, and who communicate your goodness, your joy, and your love. Bless us in our endeavors and help us always to be faithful to your will. We make this prayer to Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Father.
Thank you very much, Father Nigel.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
To all our viewers, this conversation would be on Facebook, on YouTube. So now you have a digital footprint already, Father Nigel. It will be there forever.
Immortalized.
You want to share this conversation with your friends? Yeah, do share, follow us, subscribe. As I said, I think it's a very important tool. You can use rightly. We can use it for the promotion of the kingdom. I think that's what we should be using these tools to spread the kingdom of God, kingdom of Jesus, and the good news. Thank you very much, Nigel. Thank you very much, Patrick. And look forward to seeing you all next week on Catholics at Home.
Thank you.
So take care, everybody. We hope to see you all next week, same time, for another episode of Catholics at Home. And take care and God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you.